15 Best Female Characters in Game of Thrones, ranked. The huge ensemble cast of Game of Thrones includes incredibly talented actors playing characters with intricate backgrounds and complex motivations. One of the show's strengths lies in its portrayal of many female characters with an attention that surpasses traditional fantasy tropes. Despite the show having numerous female characters, the best are the ones whose roles are indispensable to the overarching story or who undergo the most profound changes. Sansa Stark begins as a naive girl whose expectations are gradually shattered over her traumatic journey, effectively making her what she's always wanted to be. Meanwhile, Brienne of Tarth is the only woman in Game of Thrones who becomes a knight. Although many things make these characters distinct, the best female characters in Game of Thrones all go through major transformations that inevitably impact the show's narrative. While House of the Dragon focuses on female characters a lot more than its predecessor, even Game of Thrones spent time following the paths taken by the women of Westeros and Essos. Not unlike the real world, the women in G.R.R. Martin's Legendarium have far fewer rights than even the most basic men. At the same time, destroying patriarchal stereotypes is what makes these female characters shine. As such, we have updated this article with 5 more iconic entries. At the 15th place we have, Osha helped change Westeros forever. By caring for Bran, Osha indirectly shapes the plot of Game of Thrones. Originally one of the free folk under King Mansraider, Osha was caught by Robb Stark and Theon Greyjoy before becoming a servant at Winterfell. As a worshipper of the old gods, Osha understands things alien to those living south of the Wall, explaining why she's able to interpret Bran's mysterious dreams of red comets and a three-eyed raven. To keep the youngest Stark children safe, Osha eventually deceives Theon and flees Winterfell with Hodder, Rickon, Bran, and 2 dire wolves in tow. She later returns along with the children, hiding out in the crypts until the sack of Winterfell sends them to the Wall. Unfortunately, an unexpected betrayal leads Osha back to Winterfell, where she's killed by Ramsay Bolton. Even with her limited role, placing her at the bottom of this list, Osha changed the course of Westeros forever. 14th, Shireen Baratheon proved herself to be mature and compassionate. Shireen was a beacon of light for Ser Davos Seaworth, the only child and heir of Stannis Baratheon. Shireen suffered from the incurable disease grayscale as a child, leaving her severely scarred. Fans soon fell in love with this precocious girl, especially Davos Seaworth, who considered and treated her like his own beloved child. Shireen even takes the risk of visiting an imprisoned Davos, revealing that she knows exactly how to get around without being found. Shireen also attempted to teach Davos how to read and praised him for succeeding, which highlighted her uncharacteristic maturity. Sadly, some of the best Game of Thrones characters never made it out alive, including Shireen Baratheon. Eager for a victory, Stannis ceded to Melisandre's request and had his own daughter burned at the stake. If Stannis had won, he would have nobody to inherit the Iron Throne from him. 13th, Illyria Sand is blinded by uncompromising revenge. Illyria's cunning leads to a shocking coup of House Martell. As a bastard woman who lost the only person who made any difference in her life, Illyria's bold overthrow of House Martell is one of the most impressive betrayals in the show. Her targeted rage is balanced with her critical thinking, cunning, and determination, which justifies the admiration she inspires in her daughters, the Sand Snakes. Unfortunately, her plans for revenge start well, but ultimately lead to the death of her beloved Sand Snakes. 12th, Yara Greyjoy is a dependable and focused leader. Yara defied the odds in a hostile environment. Yara Greyjoy's introduction in Game of Thrones is perhaps the most controversial first scene of a character on the show. Theon's older sister remained in the Iron Islands after he was taken by the Starks, And going along with Theon's humiliating and unknowing attempt of incest was Yara's impromptu way of asserting her power over him. But after mistreating her brother in different and funny ways, she proves to be a good sister and leader by rescuing him from Ramsay Bolton. Yara has to flee the Iron Islands when her uncle Euron Greyjoy takes over power, later returning and being officially named the Lady of the Iron Islands. She significantly contributes to the world political landscape after aligning herself with Daenerys Targaryen. 11. Providing naval strategy. Catelyn Stark steps up was marked by intense power dynamics and responsibilities had to guide usually reserved for male during characters. The War of the Five Kings, which also made Yara's rise Stark more enjoyable. Is the brave as she becomes a leader of the male-dominated who plays a crucial role in the unfolding political and military conflicts of the series. Her fierce loyalty to her own family above all else drives her actions following Ned's death, such as capturing Tyrion Lannister and accepting Brienne of Tarth's servitude. Catelyn's negotiations with other houses are perhaps the only intelligent actions taken by any Stark in the early seasons, particularly her efforts to build alliances during the War of the Five Kings. Her tragic death at the Red Wedding in Season 3, Episode 9, The Rains of Castamere, marks a significant turning point in Game of Thrones. The shocking scene emphasizes the vulnerability of all characters in such a treacherous world and heavily influences the decisions made by other characters after the fact. Even though A Song of Ice and Fire fans were disappointed the show didn't bring Catelyn back from the dead like the novel does, her arc is still powerful and memorable. 10th, Margaery Tyrell would have been an excellent queen. Margaery's tactical thinking made her a political influence in King's Landing. Margaery Tyrell was first wed to Renly Baratheon, under the assumption that House Tyrell of Highgarden wanted to ally themselves with a likely contender for the Iron Throne. She was then wed to King Joffrey, gaining even greater power, and finally married King Tommen. Although these series of alliances implied that Margaery only had value as property, like many other Westerosi women, she was in fact in complete control of her life. Margaery was smart enough to influence Renly, cunning enough to deceive Joffrey, and warm-hearted enough to gain Tommen's loving confidence. It's not clear if she genuinely loved her final husband, but Margaery almost always put her family first. She, as well as her father and brother, would have lived if the High Sparrow had listened to her pleas. Despite her magnificent performance as the queen, Margaery's days on Game of Thrones were numbered, keeping her from ranking higher among her contemporaries. 9th, Missandei represented the best future for Westeros. Missandei's execution spirals Daenerys Targaryen into tyranny. Missandei was the perfect symbol of what Daenerys Targaryen wanted to bring to the world. Freedom for everyone, regardless of creed, race, age, or gender. As a slave of Astapor freed by the Mother of Dragons, Missandei represents the best possible future for Westeros. Daenerys soon took Missandei into her confidence, proving that the last Targaryen didn't care about background or origins. She proved to be a great friend and counselor. Daenerys needed little else. Unfortunately, it was Missandei's death that caused Daenerys to lose the last remaining ounce of her composure. When Cersei had her executed, Daenerys launched a fiery invasion of King's Landing. Missandei's death even left Grey Worm on the precipice of uncontrollable rage, showcasing just how much she had influenced those close to her. 8th, Lady Melisandre ends her long journey as a redeemed villain. Destructive as she was, Melisandre set the stage for Jon Snow's heroic revival. At first, Melisandre seems to be an evil witch using Stannis Baratheon for her mysterious reasons. However, her true nature and perspective on the fight for the Iron Throne are slowly revealed, and ends up justified through a surprising redemption arc. As a Red Priestess who worships the Lord of Light, Lady Melisandre follows the directions her god gives her. But this doesn't mean she'll always interpret the messages correctly. Notably regretting her role in Princess Shireen's death, the Red Woman realizes she misused her powers. Her pivotal role in resurrecting Jon Snow and her indirect guidance to Arya Stark in the Battle of Winterfell underscore her critical importance in the series' climactic events. Melisandre's departure and ultimate fate reflect her acceptance of her failures and successes, making it one of the most satisfying endings possible for such a powerful character. 7th, Olenna Tyrell goes the extra mile to protect her interests. Olenna Tyrell was among the most intelligent Game of Thrones characters. Olenna Tyrell goes the extra mile to protect her interests. The tragic Marjorie certainly is an incredibly intelligent and likable character, but Olenna is the true force behind House Tyrell. While Marjorie's potential is wasted with her death coming before she could have made any real impact, and her grandmother is the one pulling the strings, and for more videos like orchestrated this, the Queen click the subscribe button, 3 marriages, share. Known 6th, as the Queen of Thorns, Sansa Stark Olenna is introduced as an authority and became a leader in Highgarden. Sansa overcame her grueling upbringing to become morals. Queen in the North. Sansa Stark is extremely unlikable at first, with her childish view of the world contrasting with the behaviors of the other Stark siblings. But her development from a naive and idealistic young girl to a wise and strategic ruler is one of the series' most significant character arcs. Initially manipulated by those around her, Sansa learns the hard way how to do the manipulation herself, without compromising her sense of justice and morals. Sansa is the female character with the worst experiences at the hands of men. She's a victim of Joffrey, Littlefinge, and Ramsay Bolton, but she overcomes those cruel experiences to become a powerful leader. Sansa's rise to queen in the North ultimately proves her resilience and intelligence. Her newfound maturity is marked by a growing understanding of the intricacies of power and a steadfast commitment to her family's legacy. By the series' end, Sansa is arguably the most powerful woman in Westeros. 5th, Brienne of Tarth has the strongest moral compass in Westeros. Brienne is easily one of Game of Thrones' most honorable characters. At first inspection, a character with such a strong moral compass, like Brienne, wouldn't have a place in the ruthless, power-hungry world of Game of Thrones. But that's exactly what Brienne represents. She defies the audience's expectations as much as the social mores of her time. She famously rejects the traditional roles expected of noblewomen in Westeros and chooses the life of an oathkeeper, later being anointed a proper knight by Jaime Lannister. Brienne's quest to protect the Stark daughters, to fulfill her vow to Catelyn Stark, and her complex relationship with Jaime underscore her commitment to her principles. She stands as a beacon of hope for justice in a world where moral ideals are completely corrupted, a role the audience initially thought was Daenerys. Brienne's journey culminates in being named commander of the Kingsguard under King Bran the Broken, a testament to her exceptional abilities and a well-deserved reward. That being said, 4 female Game of Thrones characters prove to have better arcs than Brienne. Fourthly, Arya Stark has an insatiable thirst for adventure and fighting. Arya's skills make her dangerous with a sword as well. Arya Stark's storyline is one of the most transformative and entertaining in the series. From a tomboyish little girl to a trained assassin with a personal hit list, her journey is marked by a relentless pursuit of thrills and vengeance. Arya's time with the Faceless Men hones her into a lethal force, but it's her long road trip with the Hound that proves to be her most formative experience. Killing all kinds of characters from Walder Frey to the Night King, Arya fulfills Lady Melisandre's prophecy for her. Beyond revenge, her story also explores themes of identity and the loss of innocence. Arya's refusal to abandon her aspirations, despite the Faceless Men's teachings, highlights her strong personality and sense of self, going beyond simply being rebellious. Finally, Arya's decision to explore the unknown lands west of Westeros emphasizes her thirst for adventure and knowledge, an admirable trait that is equally responsible for her growth. Thirdly, Cersei Lannister is the best villain in Game of Thrones. Cersei's ruthlessness made her one of the HBO series' most enduring antagonists. Cersei Lannister is a complex and compelling antagonist. She's completely ruthless and seeks power over everything else, with her actions driving much of the series' drama. Cersei's personality reflects the prophecy given to her as a child and her upbringing in House Lannister, with her marriage serving only to seal the alliance between the new king and the Lannisters. As such, she only shows her tender side to her twin brother Jaime and their children. Cersei's storyline is marked by several memorable highs and lows that she successfully navigates. Notably, her lowest of lows was when she was humiliated in the Walk of Atonement enforced by the High Septon and the Sparrows. As the strong character she is, Cersei turns the tables and blows up the entire September of Baelor with her enemies inside. This kind of iconic behavior made Cersei the best villain in Game of Thrones. She becomes more cunning and driven by rage as time goes by, and only dragons are ultimately able to bring the queen down. Another child with a level of maturity far beyond her years, Lady Lyanna Mormont was the 10-year-old head of Bear Island and House Mormont. Fans have already seen how children react to tragic circumstances, especially through Sansa. But Lyanna is built of stronger stuff. Her young age doesn't stop her from being one of the most honorable characters in Game of Thrones, not to mention one of the most commanding. If Lord Tywin had seen Lyanna Mormont, particularly her courage during the Battle of Winterfell, he would have greatly envied her deceased parents. Lyanna is the kind of person who follows the right side of the moral compass, even if she has to criticize lords and ladies older than her. Lyanna doesn't survive the Battle of Winterfell, but she successfully kills the White Giant just before she dies. Watching someone that young be so proactively confident is a treat in itself. In the first place, Daenerys Targaryen is the heart of Game of Thrones. Daenerys Targaryen is the face of the show, with the most extensive resume of all the characters. She's known as the Unburnt Breaker of Chains, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, and much more, titles she accumulates on her long journey to build an army and claim the Iron Throne she's technically entitled to. With a lot of intelligence and a fair share of luck, Daenerys survives horrible circumstances and emerges as the powerful mother of dragons. Daenerys' mission to end slavery and bring justice to the oppressed makes her a symbol of hope for many at first. However, her increasing